Hi, I'm Jeremy. Welcome back to the workshop. Today I'm working on a desk, which will actually end up being a desk for a seamstress who will be sewing with a group of people. But the main design of this desk is what I consider like post and frame. So rather than this being a box like a kitchen cabinet where it has solid sides, this is going to have legs, rails, and stiles, and panels in between. And as you can see from this example, on the sides and the backs, we're going to have a panel, and there doesn't need to be any type of access to get in. And what that means is that on the top of this, our rail can be mortised right into the leg of the piece. But that's not true for the front. And in this case, she's going to have a breadboard like shelf that slides out the side. So I can't mortise in here because I need there to be a gap. So what I like to do in this case is what's called like a sliding dovetail or a drop-in dovetail in the top. And what that does is it provides my connection at the top of the leg, but I don't end up with this short little nugget at the top like I do these. And that would be even smaller or less material there if I had this thin little rail coming across here. There just wouldn't be a lot of structure there. So instead I like to switch to a dovetail. So I've already cut my dovetails over at the router table. I just set up a router bit and put this down on the table, slid it past, and I ended up notching off the corners of this piece, and I've got my dovetail. So next I'll be cutting the socket for the dovetail to the top of the leg, and that's what I want to show you today. So this is an example of the top of my leg. So I've got a panel coming in here, I've got a mortise and tenon in here, and then there's going to be a little gap right here where you can see marked out, and that's where this shelf is going to pull in and out of the piece. But I need some way of doing a connection here at the top, and rather than having like a 1/4 inch piece of material left and a 1/4 inch shoulder here, I'd only be left with a tiny little joint and hardly any material at the top. So instead I just take all of the material off the top and we replace that with a dovetail joint. And it looks a lot more complicated than it is, but here's the piece I cut at the router table. This piece I'm going to show you a second, but that just fits right into the top. And it goes in, if you take your time, it can go in nice and smooth like that. And then you can see I'm going to have my rail here, a mortise coming in here, and I'll have my little opening right here for that tray to slide out. So let's take a look at how I cut the socket of this piece. Okay, so with my leg in the vise, what I do is take the tail piece and I find the inside, because I do want that to be flush. There's going to be a little reveal on the outside. So I just take a scrap block and put that here, and so it's flush. And with the leg in place, I then take a marking knife, which I've already done, but I scribe that joint where the tail is going to drop in. And with that done, I need that to be a little more visible, because the next step I'm going to route out the waist. And what I find is just a nice fine mechanical pencil will drop right into that scribe mark with the knife. And I've scribed the end of the joint as well, but I've set my router so that it'll actually cut a little beyond that, and that'll ensure when I go to put this together that the end of the joint is not binding at all, because there's no structural integrity to the end of this joint. All of my strength is going to come from the long grain surface on the sides of the joint. So with this marked out, I'm simply going to take my router, and I've already set the router to my desired depth, and I'm going to hog away all of this material, getting as close to that line as I can, and then I'm going to come back with my chisel and just pare right down the side, and I'll have a nice fitting joint. Let's see how that works.